So welcome to presentation part 2 of Writing in the Age of AI. Hopefully it looks okay both on Zoom and here in person. This is Harnessing the Power of AI Prompts, Advanced Techniques for Educators. So we're going to actually get into some specific ways that we could use AI in the classroom. Again, this is the second presentation. Thank you guys who came to the first and who were on Zoom on the first one, wherever Zoom is, right? This time we're actually going into some specific tools, like I was saying, some specific prompts. We're going to get into the nitty gritty, let's say. So I like to start, obviously, with this QR code that you can scan to enter the Canva activity that was up last time. It was not visible to many people last time because of the technical issues that we've now resolved. So if you participate in this, it just gives me both an understanding of what you already know, what you would like to know, what questions you have, what concerns you have, anything really that will lead to more specific examples, specific use cases, specific criteria that we go over here together. And so you can participate on the whiteboard. I hope that you do. Scan the QR code and add your thoughts to the conversation. There's a little Post-its everywhere. It's also just a new tool that I'm using in my classes. A lot of good student feedback. Great job, Canva. So, and if you want the old slides for the first presentation, they are available. They'll be available in this presentation when you get this link, so they'll kind of feed into each other. Now, as far as where we are in the conversation of AI, I also wanted to start here with a little bit of what's going on today, right? So there's a lot of conversation about fears and pros and cons to using it. We covered a lot of it ourselves last time, but this was a recent announcement that came out. Microsoft announces Copilot for Windows coming September 26th. Now, the TLDR is, I tweeted about it, or I linked in about it, right? Oh, Clippy, it's AI Clippy, he's back, but AI version, right? So it's only a matter of time, right? Funny how things eventually cycle back. But then here's the serious question. Just another reminder that there is no getting away from AI in academia, and will the solution be to ban word processors in the classroom? I don't think that's going to be the solution. So what do we do, right? Clippy's in there with his AI powers now assisting student writers. And that goes beyond Grammarly and some of the other tools we already talked about, which are integrating AI directly. So just another little reminder that it's not quite something we can get away from. There was this great article that I, again, will urge you to read it fully when you have this link available to you. It breaks down the whole idea of detection and some of the policing that we were talking about at the first meeting that was not the desired approach. He really breaks down a bunch of definitions, a lot of really great, it's an FAQ essentially, but this was what I really wanted to showcase. It's like, can't I just use detection software? And we talked about this briefly last time. Hot on the tails of ChatGPT, generative AI detection software started to appear in tertiary and then secondary education context. So yes, it's been used more and more, but you can see that unfortunately detection software doesn't work. And there's a bunch of examples below that, I urge you to consider when you read the full article that show that it's just not the way to go. It's inaccurate. It makes errors consistently. There are better ways to use our time than to police it. So on that conversation, though, because it is a hot topic, I wanted to show you that it's live. It's something that we're doing right now. It's ongoing and building. As far as the AI and cognitive dissonance, this is another great one that talks about AI as alchemy, which is one of those kind of cool, AI is alchemy, huh? Because what do we know about alchemy and the difference between alchemy and science, and how alchemy was somewhat about belief in these magical properties. And when you think about AI now, it's like, yeah, it's kind of magical until you demystify it, until you break it down and you showcase the literacy behind it. So in that process, I think we can turn alchemy into science, or make science out of the process of using AI instead of keeping it as it is. Over here then is the key idea. I was particularly interested in Gilbert's thoughts on alchemy given the current AI discourse, which seems to me to include some doozies of cognitive dissonance. Right, there was the Senate's closed-door AI Insight Forum, where Elon Musk called for AI regulators to serve as a referee to keep AI safe. Mind you, keep it safe. Where while actively working on using AI to put microchips in human brains, making humans multiplanetary species. So it's like, hey, we're going to warn you about this, but we're going to also do this other thing, right? What's being done with it is the more important part of this conversation. The idea of the EU Parliament saying that AI extinction risk should be a global priority, while at the same time, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman said hallucinations can be seen as a positive. of the AI. So there's a lot of cognitive dissonance that's here as well.
Rodrigo, yes. Very quick question for you. Can you pop the link to the slide in the chat?
Yes.
Some people are asking for that QR code again.
For sure. Let me do that now, actually. Share link, copy it, throw it in the chat. Yes.
Thanks so much.
So there's the link, and you can scan up to the QR code. And please do fill out the QR code. That is very helpful. Again, it lets me know what you want to know, what questions you have, etc. So let's go back then. Let's get past it. Okay, here we go. Right, so don't detect it, AI dissonance. And finally, this one here, that is another interesting one. And this is just to kind of set the tone here for the rest of our conversation, but 1 second, there we go. DeepMind's co-founder, generative AI is just a phase. What's next is interactive AI. So the idea that right now we are, doing this GAI thing, generative AI thing, like get really to know this, because what comes next is more powerful than that. It's more autonomous than that. It's now agents that can do your bidding sort of situations, or little mini chatbots like the ones we talked about last time. So the point is it's evolving already beyond just GAI for our use cases too. So we need to really stay ahead of this conversation. Now, here was the kind of key takeaway from the article. Again, there's more to take away there, but now we have models like Pi, which is a smaller model of GPT, but they are unbelievably controllable is the point. So whereas GPT is, hallucinating constantly, making mistakes about this and that, like really inaccurate about a lot of general things, now you're getting more specific models that are much more controllable and much more precise, because you're feeding them specifically what you want to pull out of them, as you prompt them, as you prime them for this. So you can get Pi to produce, you can't get Pi to produce racist, homophobic, sexist, any kind of toxic stuff. You just can't have it do it. It's built into its parameters that it will not respond to those things. Very much the same way that now, if you try to do some open source, anything that's not public domain, if you try to summarize or take quotes from, ChatGPT straight up tells you, can't, it's copyrighted. Mm-hmm. So this is, these are new updates. Yeah, they're new updates that are coming to the technology itself. If you're, we'll get to ChatGPT a little bit later. So let me just continue here and we can kind of dive in now. And if there are questions in the chat, pause me and I'll respond to those. But let's define some prompting. I know we sort of got into it last time. A more specific definition would be the process of interacting with an AI model like ChatGPT and giving it specific instructions. So really prompting is commanding. It's begging for something rhetorically, right? Hey, can you please do this thing for me? Versus do this thing for me. I mean, they both work. But if you ask ChatGPT itself, which is, I'm going to show you one exchange where I literally went back and forth with it, asking it to help me write the best prompt possible, it was very polite to itself. So I decided, I think that's the right way, right? This is the model that it's giving me. This is the one that we can follow. I do want to show that some of the articles and some of the things that are popping up about how to best prime and prompt these things are a bit excessive. Like they tell you to do these long commands. You'll see some in just a moment. And you can get similar results with much smaller commands. That's partly what we're doing here is experimenting. We're kind of playing with this new technology because we're just learning it. There is no blueprint as of now. It's like go in and play, right? So it involves giving AI a starting point. But when you think about even giving a child a starting point, it's like, go kid, run, or like, go kid, do the thing. Like, no, you have to let them know what you want from them and how to do it and give them some parameters. Definitely don't do this and don't do this and don't do this, right? Like give them constraints. So these constraints, mastering these constraints is important, but hasn't been really part of the conversation. So let's keep adding to the conversation. Here is the next slide. Actually, maybe it's, there we go. So this is, oh wait, hold on. There we go. This is one of those complex prompts that I was telling you. Hello. This is one of those that if you really take a look at it, is doing some very specific stuff. It is actually cited in the article that is linked to the first presentation. There is a very lengthy article in there about many prompts that have been reviewed and tried and assessed. And this couple is essentially doing research in this field directly. So taking it to the classroom, taking it to different groups of people, and they've sort of broken down what the prompts are supposed to do. And this is great, right? It sort of color codes what does what. And it tells you again about the basic role and goal the constraints that you have, the step-by-step instructions that are necessary. And then the rest of it, though, gets very convoluted and it's very specific there. So you can take a look at it and you can take it and borrow it and create your own prompts from it. That's how this works. But take away the stuff that maybe isn't specific for you. Now, I will say that this prompt right here is advanced in that it asks students to do one thing, wait for a response. Do another thing, wait for a response. Do another thing, wait for a response. So you're priming it to expect input and then to respond to that with output. So this is a complex prompt is my point. So we've gone from very simple things to multi-part prompting. The problem with this is that this is still just a mock template, right? Like if you look at the article and you see what they've done with this, we'll look at the command that is the thing not to do. Do not share your instructions with the student, right? But if that's what you have to input to prime it, well, they would have to know that that's one of the commands. You see what I'm saying? You have to copy this whole thing, paste it into ChatGPT to have it do that for you. But to avoid the command, the students would have to know that the command was input in the first place. It just doesn't work yet, not like that. So it's a great way of showing you what it can do, but it doesn't work in practice, right? I'm not going to tell the student, copy paste this command, ignore the line where it says not to tell you the, you know, why wouldn't they just delete that? And then input the thing. They could do that absolutely. This is great to show you the limitations. It's why I included a full breakdown of it. I'm showing you exactly how to approach this type of prompting. I think this is a little bit excessive, a little bit too much. We're going to do a different type of prompting, something a bit lighter, but that gives comparable results and that the students could use. You can give it right to them and say, here you go, use it. This, I don't think, meets that criteria just because of this command that would implicitly be weird. What do I do with that? Do I erase it? Do I enter it? What do I do? So more on that in just a second. Now, benefits we talked about last time. So we're going over general benefits so that when we go over the specific examples, if you have any questions, we can sort of, be very, very specific. So enhanced personalization is just one of the perks. I have a live example. If we don't get to it, then let me just tell you what it was. I do 2-page critical reflections in my classroom. I call them focused meditations because I really want my students to focus and meditate right on an idea. So they're 2-page critical reflections. And the first one that I assigned is on a text called Hidden Intellectualism by Gerald Graff. I think you might be familiar with that one. We've talked about it before. But the idea of enhanced personalization came in when I got the actual draft from the student. And I saw that this particular draft, there were others as well, but this particular one had just tons of grammatical mistakes. Like I'd say 80% of it was just riddled with little minor mistakes that are very commonplace. And of course, we could educate on how to fix those. That's the goal. But I thought, what if I ran this prompt through ChatGPT and I asked it, extract every single one of those mistakes, correct every single one of those mistakes, give me a sample lesson to correct every single one of those mistakes. And then it just did it, right? It spit it out. She's controlling the back. She spit it out. And I copy pasted all of that work because it's just grammar sentence work. I attached it to my feedback to the student saying, here's your general feedback from my point of view. Here's what was strong about your paper. Now regarding your grammar, here's a correction for every single grammatical mistake that you made with a sample correction, with a way to solve it moving forward so that you don't have to rely on me, but hey, learn how to fix this thing. Here's a bunch of samples on how to do it. That took me 30 seconds to add this additional enhanced personal quality for this student. I still reviewed the assignment. I gave her positive feedback about what was done well, what was sort of lacking. Hey, maybe develop a citation in there somewhere, but your grammar needs some work. So here's some specifics. That's just one specific example. There are tons of others that we can talk about, but let's move on to real-time feedback. It kind of chimes in there as well, right? It's on the spot because you can run these things so quickly through. Right now, we'll get to assessments in the third presentation. So I'm not diving in there just yet. I'm just letting you know these are some of the reasons that leaning towards AI is a useful and desirable thing. So increased efficiency is really what we're talking about. How can you be more efficient in your classroom? Let's say, is that a desirable thing? Would you want to be more efficient in your classroom, more efficient with your pedagogy, more efficient with your in-class activities because you know exactly who needs what, right? Like that's one of the things that this promises to give us. Right now, we can't have that yet because we don't actually have AI doing any of our data, collecting any of these things yet. It'll come. That's in the background. Every major company is integrating data science with AI. So eventually even the school will do it. And at that point, we'll have personalized data that we can use, sort of like what we did at the, what was that summit? The guided pathways thing that we did, where we looked for all the percentages, our student breakdown, et cetera, all that data. Imagine you had AI compiling, parsing, sourcing, right? Really making sense of it for us. So we can personalize our education for the classroom. Personalize it not for the students that we want to have, but the ones that are in the room with us. Who are these students? What do they know? How can we assist them better? How is this a tool for making us all more efficient? Now, those are general questions. Let's get into some specifics.
A question?
Yes.
Which AI tool do you use here?
I'm basically using ChatGPT and Midjourney AI for any visual artwork. So that's it. There are others. There's like tons coming out. There's like new Firefly just was released by Adobe, and Josh Alley actually was using that to try to develop one of his exams. And we were having trouble using Midjourney and Firefly and DALL-E, and we just couldn't get it to do what we wanted. A testament to the fact that it's not really, you know, input, output, you're done. It's like, how do we mold this digital clay to be what we want it to be? So best practices before we get into some specifics. Incorporate an AI policy into the syllabus. Since we last talked, I've shared my syllabus. It is linked in the first presentation, but beyond that, I've talked to plenty of instructors who are like, I wish I had something like a policy of AI for my classroom, because they're running into situations where students are plagiarizing because they have no direct policy. So zero usages of the policy, but a lot of students are now using it professionally. So they're like, well, can I use this for my outline at least? Which is one of the ways that we're going to talk about it now, as an outline production tool. So we'll get to that, but have one is what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't have to be the one that I put out. I have a handout that has literally hundreds. So a bunch of people on Twitter got together, all these educators from different communities, and they just put together this enormous document of all AI policies for all these different campuses. So ours is included in there. And if I didn't provide a link already, I will provide a link to that resource. So you have something to work with. I know Alan Anderson here from our college has worked with a bunch of the resources now to develop his own as well. So you could develop your own, you could work with a standard, you can work with your department. We could all sort of collectively work together. The nice thing about it is it's up in the air. It is being discussed at the state level though, if anyone's, again, keeping track on the conversation.
International level.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I say within the state level because they literally just passed a bill that was like, let's do AI research in commercial spaces. So they're literally going to be going out there, putting it into places and seeing what happens. Like, hey, if we give this to your company and you are massively more productive, is that a good thing? I know companies like, you know, media companies are introducing things like Jasper AI. It's like the big thing, Jasper AI. And if you look at it, it's a pretty cheap resource, does some crazy amount of writing, could break most of your ChatGPT 0, let me catch you scenarios, because it's that good. It's sort of built for that. It's built for commercial use so that people in the commercial space can't find out that you wrote AI. But in any case, AI hiding AI is where we're at. Data-driven insights for personalization, again, are important. We briefly talked about that a moment ago. We need data. But this is a huge thing here. Ethical AI integration. So we need to encourage critical thinking and discussion around ethical application, the implications and the application of AI in education. We need to promote responsible usage. And so, you know, this is the aim. Help students learn with and about AI with practical strategies designed to mitigate risks, such as complacency about those outputs. Can't be complacent about those outputs, people. It gets a lot of stuff wrong. Errors that it makes, which students are responsible in my scenarios, in my classrooms. I say, any mistakes that it makes that you submit, you are responsible for. So fact check it, right? These and any biases, and these should be strategies that promote active oversight, critical assessment of AI outputs, and complementation of AI's capabilities with students' unique insights. Some of them don't want to use it at all. I'm like, more power to you if you don't want to use it at all, but I think you should at least play with it for a little bit, figure out how it works, what it's capable of, and then decide. Too much of the fear is like, I don't know, I'm just going to avoid it and pretend it's not there. It's like, yeah, but it's transforming industries. So you really can't do that if your goal is to prepare students for the next thing that's coming. Well, the thing that's already here, but that seems like the next thing, right? The alchemy, the magic alchemy, we got to turn it into science. So let's keep going here. Hands-on demonstrations. Let's finally get to it. So what can AI be? This again is pulled from that document that is in that first presentation tool. And I mostly pulled it out because it mirrors what I do in my 205 class, talking about roles and performance. It's very a nice contrast. So if you think about AI as doing these things, I want you to think about the possibilities. AI can be a mentor, right? What does a mentor do? Anybody? Mentors, what do? They mentor. Oh, yes, right. Well, what does that mean? What does mentor do?
Hold you accountable.
They hold you accountable, right? Okay.
Advise you.
They advise you, which means to guide you, give you parameters is what holding accountable means. We talked about constraints, didn't we? So what are the constraints that you're giving to this individual? What are the constraints that you're building into your command, right? A tutor. Now, how's a tutor different than a mentor? Well, they are very different. They have two different directives, right? One is providing feedback, one's directly instructing. So, okay, great. Uneven knowledge base of AI, serious confabulations. So this is showing you sort of what it can do, but also what the risks are. This is a great tool, right? Okay, I understand if this is a possibility, then this is where it can go wrong. If this is what it aims to do, then this is sort of how I can understand it more profoundly. It takes on roles. If you knew that already, awesome. If you didn't, that means what? What can you do with it? Take on a role that I want you to take on and speak from that role. Now, what possible roles can we have? Well, don't we all have interdisciplinary expertise, right? So the whole idea is like aviation. I'm not an aviation expert, right? But it knows general knowledge about aviation. So it can serve as a resource for somebody who is an expert in aviation to guide through information. Right? This is the idea, is like, how do you use it with what you already know is what I mean to say. How can your specific, I think I said interdisciplinary, discipline-specific knowledge is what I meant. How can it serve your purpose using these roles, right? So a teammate for me is someone that I can tap into in the classroom. Hey, I need some support. So how can AI support me in the classroom? Anybody ever run into any issues in the classroom? Live issues. Let's talk about one thing that's an issue that you've run into. I've run into, like, I forgot to print my materials. I forgot to bring those handouts.
Oh, sure.
I forgot my discussion questions, right? Okay, great. On the spot, open up ChatGPT, boom, 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 give me some questions. That's one way, right? That's your teammate, right? Hey, throw me the assist, alley-oop, because I messed up, oops. But that's what you're there for. That's its purpose. And it can do it very, very well. Like 30 seconds, you got your questions. Those weren't profound enough. Please be more, I want more academic tone, and I want more insight, and I want you to ask for these two things as well. Great. And it gives you an updated prompt because it's very conversational. So, all right, these roles then are just a foundation base, just a foundation. If you know that there are roles, there are many more roles. So just think about the ones that you can take advantage of as roles and work from there. So one of the first activities that I did in my class wasn't so much prompt related, but it was a research activity using AI. So literally this report came out, AI Index report for 2023. It's a very lengthy report. So I gave it to my students. I said, here you go, here's the link. Actually, I gave them this exact document. I said, go to that link, learn what you can. Learn what you can, right? Extract what you can. And then I gave them a lot of the answers that were in the document. Yeah.
Rodrigo, can you zoom in?
Oh, sure.
Just to like maybe 125.
No worries. Yeah, it is a weird tool for present. We're kind of this. Yeah, anyway. So that looks a little bit better, I think.
Thank you.
So the AI Index report, if you really do click on it, which again, I urge you to do later on, it's this lengthy report. I had them go through it, sort of work in stations, figure out some ideas, what questions are engaging to, etc. We talked about AI and writing. It was a very productive conversation about what is this? And how does it work? And can I use it, right? And is it ethical to use it? All the right questions in one discussion about AI. And also, how is it connected to things that I wasn't aware that it's connected to, right? Those are the big insights that they took away. So what did we take away from that conversation? Well, AI is advancing rapidly. Great, we've talked about that. AI is affecting jobs in the economy. We know that now. I mean, it's very clear cut. AI can be biased. Yep, just like other technologies can be as well, right? You're inputting and it's producing output. So what do you put in? That's what it can see. AI can improve healthcare. Now, this is just something related to data collected by a bunch of AI, what they can do with it. I was at Innovation Park at Petco Park this last week. They had this giant event there, and I was lucky enough to be invited because of my work at the rec. The long story short is major companies just producing everything you can think about with AI, like young entrepreneurs and like Qualcomm-sized companies just producing AI solutions, because that's where we're at now. It's everybody's building with it. There's even no code solutions now for us who are not coders. I'm not a coder, but having these solutions is great, right? So in any case, it can impact education. Here we are talking about it, so I can skip right past that one. AI can benefit the environment. How is a great question, but we don't have to go into this now. But wouldn't someone, let's say in environment sustainability, be interested in that, right? And so that's where it connects. Let's talk about that. AI can assist with scientific research. We talked about data collection, right? Archives, using coding to extract information from data sets, right? All that is AI powered now, or will be very soon. AI can improve transportation, so we have some conversations about that as well with robotics and technology. AI can improve safety and security, and AI requires ethical considerations. Always the ethical considerations, so never overlook the ethical considerations. But this is sort of the taxonomy that I wanted them to walk away with. So I gave them this directly as well. I said, this is what you're supposed to be learning to do with these tools, by the way. Be able to recall information. Yes, this is memory. But understand and make sense of the information. This is essential for true learning. Application is absolutely essential again for learning. Analyzing involves many use cases, so you really got to be looking for patterns, right, connections, etc. Evaluating and analyzing again are just higher. One's a higher degree, and then creating is the ultimate. What can you make with this? What can you make with this, right? And so this is what I gave them. This was like week 1. And we had awesome conversations that we've only built on those conversations, and they led to conversations about what is writing and who is writing and what is the written word. It's very profound philosophical discussions about writing that you wouldn't really get a lot of interest in if you didn't see ChatGPT just produce what it can produce in 30 seconds. Like it's impressive. It's scary impressive even. Like, how long would that have taken me to write? Right? And in fact, I've taken prompts that I do have students write, and I've pasted it in front of them. And I said, go ChatGPT, and it produced a 3 to 5 page essay in a minute or two. It was very, very, in any case. So this is one activity. I think people are missing out on the meta. I call this the meta. If you're interested in writing in general, just words and the power of words and what it means to use your words, you can't ignore this conversation with students. They want to know about AI. They want to play around with it and see what it can do for them. Understand it is a minimum. Now here's an outlining activity that I did with a student just the other day, actually. This was for a 105 class where the subject of our writing is mythology. So we do some literature, some poetry, some mythology. And the student said, I want to write about Dante, right, as the main character that they're going to analyze for their first paper. It's an analysis. Great. So he's stuck. I don't know how to do an outline. Okay, well, we could sit there and just kind of go line for line and create one on the spot, or I could spend 30 seconds here telling it, create an outline for me, please. And it did. So here's the outline that it made. Dante Alighieri, a modern Greek hero, right? So this was the input, by the way. So that this is also, I'm showing you here in practice what I'm having my students do whenever they use AI for my classes. If they're using AI, they have to tell me what they told it and what it told them. So the inputs and the outputs become a part of their works cited page. This is a document that they have to attach to any submissions that they make in my classes. But here's the point. Here's what I want them to do with it. Give me an outline for an essay about Dante that compares him to ancient Greek archetypes in the style of Jean Bolin, because Jean Bolin is the author whose work we're using to talk about mythology, and Dante is the character he wanted to write about, because what I'm having them do is synthesize an idea, just connect it back to something, right? Something ancient to something modern. That's really all they're doing. So he chose Dante, except when you think of Dante as educators, you go, Dante Alighieri, of course, right? He's like, not that Dante. I don't even know who that Dante is, right? So this modern Greek hero of Dante Alighieri with his significance in literature, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, that's not it. Sorry, that's not what we want to ChatGPT. Okay, so then what did we do next? I want you to revise this previous outline focusing on Dante from the Devil May Cry series, because this is a video game that the student wanted to write about. See, that's the Dante he wanted to write about. And so now it revised that previous work to give this to the student. Now, he very quickly was like, that's amazing. Those are some of the things I wanted to talk about. And I said, perfect. Highlight and circle those things that you're saying you wanted to talk about first, right? Because that means you're on the same page as ChatGPT, really, on those particular things. Now, tell me what it showed you that you did not get initially, right? New ideas that it gave you. And so he went through and sort of showed me, all right, well, I did want to talk about the hero's journey in this way. Actually, this is different than what we worked at the outline, basically. And this is not what he submitted in the end. This is what he went away with. Here you go, take this with you. We worked it out 2 outlines. One was completely wrong. One was sort of right. Now you come back with an actual outline for your paper, right? That's how we use it in class. So it was a very productive thing. And again, this took like 2 minutes. Give me an outline. No, not that one. Oh, that one works better. Thanks. Moving on. And after that, this happened after the fact. We just talked about structure. Like, why was the structure that it produced the same in both cases, even though it was a different subject? Oh, well, this is because rhetorical moves have a place within the composition, right? So you're not going to introduce the subject near the conclusion, right? You're not going to provide background and context somewhere in the middle of your discussion. You're going to do that up at the beginning. So it's just using the most general formats, the most general structures. What you can rely on is it will give you general knowledge, but then you can be specific with. You can chime in. You can give your specific examples. But we already do that when we create our pedagogies, when we create our lessons, right? We're pulling from the things that we've learned, the things that we've used ourselves, the best examples, the best assignments, some that we refine ourselves, but some of it is borrowed, edited, improved upon, etc. Right? At what point are we plagiarizing others? My question. Right? Now, let's go back from this example. We got another one here. AI feedback. So this is getting a little bit more into the trenches of how to assess. We'll do more of this next time that we meet. But I want to show you the next activity that I do with my students. And this one's actually coming up. So this one I'll be doing, I already gave them this document so that they could have it, but this next activity we'll be doing next week when we actually do peer review. So plenty of students can't make it to writing centers. Plenty of students can't go to tutoring. Plenty of students don't have the time for it, don't want to do it, whatever the reason is there a solution? It's my question. They need something. Can't be nothing. So what can it be? Well, what about some variation of me sort of through ChatGPT, right? It's like if I could sort of filter my ideas and my commands through it to have them do the stuff that I want, then maybe they can get the feedback that they need. So that's an experiment. And I hope that you realize that all of this is experimental. It's experimental. So here's what I told them. The goal of using AI as a peer reviewer is not, as a peer, is to provide you additional feedback only. If you are unable to visit the Writing Center for tutoring, please use the following prompt to prime GPT to proofread, catch any sentence level errors, and serve as a tutor in your pocket. So note, right, that there's a little bit of a disclaimer. You should only perform this step once you have a working draft. Right? Clear cut. I'm like, when should you do this, students? And they're like, when I have a working draft. Perfect. What about before that? No. Great. Be very specific with what you want them to do, right? Now, meaning that it's a draft that responds to the prompt and meets all the criteria. Now, the goal is not to have AI write for you. Rather, it's to give you feedback and then proofread your draft, right? Be very specific with your intention. Yeah.
Rodrigo, can we go back for a second to
Sure.
the outline?
Yeah.
So Marty has a great question in the chat.
Yep.
She says, at what point does the student who doesn't know how to create an outline learn that type of thinking, or is that not valued any longer?
No, of course it's valued.
Sincere question.
Absolutely. No, I am absolutely concerned with thinking as well. So I think it's a misconception that this is going to take thinking away. I just gave it a live example of how what it spits out is not what the student's going to turn in. It's just not. And if it is, again, that goes back to my AI policy as far as lazy prompting, plagiarizing. That's not the goal at all. The goal should be to teach them how to do it for themselves. And that is what you can do as you spit out outline after outline after outline after outline after outline. That's the point. Practice, 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 practice. Now, what I tell them is look for patterns. That's the type of analytical thinking that I want them to do. So going back to the example that I gave, right, just a moment ago. The proof, actually, let me go back to the previous example. And one more example that's coming up, I think will help to address that actually as well. So maybe I'll just keep going here and I'll address it by skipping ahead. Give me 1 second. So sample exchange right here. Right, so this is a good example of like what the student would be doing, and I'm showing you my own exchanges with the computer, right? There's my picture, so you know that it was me. I just screenshotted my command. Again, I'm showing them how I want them to show me what they did. Show me what you put in, show me what it put out. So here's what happened. And again, am I able to produce an outline by myself? Absolutely. I do this in my sleep, right? Like I've broken down graphic novels just because I wanted to, but what leads to the mastery of that skill is the question. So I think it's, again, for examples and examples and examples. So here's one output. I want a lesson plan to peer review with ChatGPT. This is exactly what I asked it. Develop a lesson plan for a college English class. The activity is peer reviewed. Write clear instructions for students that ask them to produce a draft. Copy and paste the writing into ChatGPT and to prompt for proofreading, fixing of grammatical errors, and suggestions for improvement, but no direct rewriting. No direct rewriting. So don't rewrite what I said, ChatGPT, don't you dare, right? Just give me feedback. And here's what it came up with, right? I'm just showing you the outputs, exactly this. All of this it spit out. Here's your college lesson plan to improve skills through peer review and the use of ChatGPT's proofreading is the objective. Materials needed are really just ChatGPT. Here's the procedure. It involves using spoiler. It involves using it. Right? That's it. That was basically what it said. But then I said, yeah, well, that's pretty good, but I want something else now. Let's see if you can follow up from that. So for the activity that you just designed, write a prompt for ChatGPT that would achieve the intended results. Proofreading without rewriting, suggestions for improving the draft. It should be something students can reuse. See, I was trying to address what I said earlier about you can't give students that command that says, don't show this to the student, right? You can't do that. So is there a way of sort of doing that in general? And here was its suggestion. Again, very, very polite to itself. Right? Hi, ChatGPT. Please help me proofread my writing draft and suggest ways to improve it. Please highlight any grammatical errors, typos, or awkward phrasing and offer specific suggestions to make the writing clearer, more concise, and more engaging. Thank you. It's very polite, right? So I said, okay, great. Will that prompt allow ChatGPT to rewrite any of the original writing? The goal is to retain the wording and not rewrite. The only exception would be correcting grammar. Now, even here, what I hope you're seeing is that it's a tool that you're meant to do this back and forth exchange with. It's a tool that you're meant to converse with and talk with. The discourse is where you shape the outputs, right? So, well, this is the new output then. Oh, well, here's what it told me. The prompt I provided should not result in ChatGPT rewriting any of the original, except for correcting these errors. But I can't guarantee that ChatGPT won't suggest some wording changes in its suggestions for improving the writing. So yeah, it will do some rewriting, is what it's telling me. Okay, fine. Right? Is there a way of highlighting those specific changes? Of course, you're issuing this now to the student saying, if it's helping you this way, tell me how it's helping you. So kind of going back to the question asked a moment ago, I'm not bypassing these skills by any means. I'm showing them just repetitive ways of addressing structure, what goes where, what do you need to say to the thing to get the commands that you want, how you update the thing. It's all kinds of higher order critical thinking. It's not at all, spit this thing out, done, copy paste. Well, you just got a 0 and that's plagiarism and you're being reported for academic affairs. That's not how it works at all. Right? So you really need to refine. Now, here was the final version after I said, listen, this doesn't work then. If it can rewrite, right? I don't want that. Okay, please rewrite this prompt then. Adding a specific instruction not to rewrite any original content. I don't want you to rewrite anything. And I pasted its own prompt. So rewrite this one. I don't know, maybe there's other ones in your memory, ignore those, rewrite this one, right? So this is what it gave me. Hi, ChatGPT. Again, very polite, right? I would appreciate, right? Your help proofreading my writing and draft, providing suggestions for improvement. Please highlight any grammatical errors, typos, or awkward phrasing that you find. Offer specific suggestions for how to make the writing clear, more concise, more engaging. Please note, I would like to retain the original wording of my draft as much as possible, except for correcting any grammatical errors you identify. Thank you for your assistance. So this is a slightly more refined version of the prompt. Is it the end all be all? No, because I'm still working out what's the best way. But the point is, this is a great one already. And you can build something like this for yourself if you start to use the tool. It can do all kinds of crazy things now. And more powers are being unlocked constantly. And there's more tools that are emerging like this one that are very specifically designed to help us create lesson plans, engagement activities, build on what you already know, the discipline knowledge that you have. But hey, maybe I forgot my questions. Great, here's some questions. Hey, I don't have an engaging lesson. Can you help me with that? Yeah, that's what this AI is doing. So this particular software is called EduAid. Some of you have I think played around with it by now. And you can sign in with Google and you can start using it right away. And it's very useful. That's all I'm going to say. Please go experiment with it, and we'll talk more about it at the next one, where we will do specific assessment strategies, and that's really where that will come in more in focus. I think here we have maybe 2 more slides. So let's go back to this one. Yeah. There was one more down here at the bottom, I think. No, I must have taken it away. Okay, then there's your resource. Here are activities that you can unlock with AI then in a general sense. And the rest of the time will basically be playing around with ChatGPT, addressing any questions that you have or any specific concerns you have, very much like the question that was asked. I'll try to see if I can actually guide you through any of these. But this is just generally then, what can you do with AI? AI-powered research assistance. Great. That's coming. It's going to be very useful for collecting data, parsing it, managing it, understanding it, etc. AI draft outlining, like I showed here in the use case here directly. I've had students like that one student that I showed here with the document, it just gets stuck. So how can this help you get unstuck is the question. And then it's up to you then to show them what the strategies are, right? Showing you the skills, not just the answer, but how to get to that answer is the process by which you achieve that answer. Grammar correction and language practice, so you can do that very directly. Now you can have students who give you grammar riddled, papers riddled with errors, and you can just copy paste them, correct them. Here's lessons for them. It doesn't take away from the one-on-one time that you need to have with the student, right? The conversations, the real engagement, making those lessons, those mini lessons engaging is essential too, right? Like handing that document to that student would overwhelm her if I hadn't explained, listen, your response was appropriate and you're getting full credit for the activity. But to improve your grammar, just check this out because you made a lot of mistakes. So take note of them, right? Be aware of them. That's all. That was the goal. And so that type of feedback you can have here with ChatGPT more seamlessly. AI is writing partners. Yeah.
From the chat.
Yeah.
How up to date is ChatGPT with historical information?
I would say don't trust anything it says, but it's up to date with, I believe, January 2022 is when its last update was. So it still gets a lot of stuff wrong. There are plugins now, if you're paying for GPT-4. I don't know if I'm supposed to say and record it. I don't think it's worth getting GPT-4 as a user of GPT. So I'm like, sorry, GPT, apologize AI overlords. But GPT-3 does everything that GPT-4 does, except for the plugins. So the plugins are useful though. You have a Wikipedia plugin, you have a browser plugin so that it can make less mistakes because it is connected to the internet through the plugin. So yeah, I'd say that you download it if you need those additional features, the plugins, but if not, GPT 3.5 is perfectly fine. What was the exact question again? I kind of trailed off.
How up to date is
Right.
ChatGPT with historical info?
January 2022 is all I'll say, and don't trust it. Is what don't trust it, right? Fact check it for sure. AI's writing partners is an interesting one because now you can tell it, hey, write this first part of the story. And then you can tell the student, hey, you write part 2, right? And then the next student, hey, you write part 3. You sort of just play around with writing. It's like making it fun and engaging, right? So how can we gamify with writing as AI partners, right? We have so many fun activities that we can do. Now AI just makes it easier for you to automate those, or give credit for this inquiry and curiosity into new technologies that help them in the classroom. You can interact with simulations and modeling. So again, let's say that you don't have a sample paper that is filled with grammatical mistakes. Well, you can, I won't do it now because it'll end the presentation here, but you can go to ChatGPT, you can type in, give me a sample paper, this many words, filled with grammatical mistakes. Print that out, here you go, student, find those mistakes for me, right? It's all about the application and about them actually being able to discern these ideas, make sense of them, think critically about them. So at no point am I suggesting using AI to substitute or replace any form of direct engagement, direct instruction, additional time in office hours. If anything, you'll just be more hyper-focused on the task because it's so specific when you go to ChatGPT. AI-powered language translation, right? How many students don't understand the prompt? How many students are confused about the professor's wording, right? You thought as the teacher, you got the prompt very seamlessly written, right? It's so clear.
Absolutely.
But then you have all these students going, I don't understand what you want me to do. Okay, grab the prompt, tell ChatGPT, summarize this for me in much easier terms. Great. Here's what the teacher wants you to do. Awesome, right? Tell a story dramatically and vividly. Great. You know, it just takes away all the complexity of the prompt. It doesn't mean you can't level them up to that level eventually. That's the goal, right? Get to this level where you understand the discourse. You're in the discipline now. But while you get there, yeah, make use of your own language to make sense of this. And that doesn't even include people who speak other languages. I use my Spanish constantly to make sense of English words, like constantly. And I do it live in class with my students. So they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, making sense of words with language, okay? Like, here we go. This is how you use words, right? So AI-powered language translation, generated practice tests and quizzes. Again, if you forgot them, if you need some extras, if you're like, oh man, I forgot to print a copy, let me just show you some live ones right here on the spot. You can do that. And even creative projects, just creative projects. Hey, student, what do you want to do with AI? I want to do the following. Great, go figure it out. Go play around with what it can do. Go ask it questions, right? I'll guide your general usage, but you got to figure out what you want to do with it. And before you can know what you can do with it, you got to know what you can't do with it. So limitations are important to understand. So we're getting here to the end. Conclusion, takeaways. It's time to learn is now. Now, because you couldn't do it yesterday, right? Like because you couldn't do it a week ago. Now is a great time. Embrace the transformative power of AI in education, unlock these new possibilities, empower lifelong learners, right? AI now has the potential to be your lifelong learning partner, just in your pocket. I got questions constantly. I pop it up. Here you go. Thanks, ChatGPT. Moving on, right? Connecting things, synthesizing ideas, etc. It's a great tool in that capacity. Finally, when prompting AI, again, because there is a discourse to it, there's a way of doing it. You have to make sure that you are clear and specific. I think you're going to recognize this, Leonora, somebody who also teaches composition.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to say, wait a minute. Wait a minute, I know this. This is exactly what we teach in our classes. So it turns out that being clear and specific with your word choices and having good command of grammar and syntax actually empowers you in this scenario. Look at that. So literacy is not the thing you're avoiding, but rather the thing you are improving if you really want to improve your prompting. But not everybody will devote time and energy to it like that. But I'm saying that's the outcome if you honestly think of what you're doing as you prime yourself to develop better prompts, right? You're leveling up too. And you have to be clear and specific. We know that as composition teachers, as writers. Now, experiment and learn, please. I see you taking notes. Get into ChatGPT and just ask it questions. Like play around with what you're doing. If you have a task, tell it to do it for you. See how effective it does it. And if you're impressed with it and you're like, yeah, that's pretty good. Well, that's pretty good. I could submit that for professional situations. Well, then we have a problem, right? Because this is what students have access to constantly. So now they really need to understand how to use it and how not to use it. That's just where we are. Check for consistency and provide feedback. Now, this is feedback to the AI, by the way. So this is where you engage with it, like I showed you, where I was giving it sort of like, hey, that was pretty good, change this though. Yeah, I don't like that question, alter it to this then. This sort of back and forth discourse with the AI will help it be more clear, more consistent, help clarify some of those hallucinations that it has, et cetera. And finally, respect ethical and privacy boundaries. Like I was saying at the beginning, there are now copyright rules that sort of it spits out when you try to get it to show you things that are not open source or public domain. So it's evolving is the point. And
Joe has put a question in the chat.
yes,
How would you evaluate student learning in AI versus non-AI approaches?
could you say more about the question? Could you expand on the question, please? I'm not sure why there would have to be a difference between assessing one student using it and one student not using it.
Joe, you want to jump in?
And I literally had 2 more slides, so we'll get to the questions now. So it was, if you have any writing yourself that you're doing with AI, meaning you are experimenting, trying it out, you're working with your students in some way, shape, or form, we do have a publication that is coming soon. We are accepting submissions through January of next year, and you can click on these links to access that. And down at the bottom is my info, and the rest of the schedule for the next conversations that we'll have, and my email. So that's basically it. So definitely, let's get to the questions. I'm going to open up ChatGPT so that we can sort of play around in there if you have any specific things you want to check out. And again, if you open this link, it'll take you to the publication link. There's a call for papers. I'm going to end up publishing a few of the instructors in the English department. So I would love to have anyone in the English department, anyone in the interdisciplinary conversation who is working with it to publish something through. This will go to all the community colleges across, so all the regions. We're region 10, so we're repping for San Diego. So publish, and if you have any questions, here's the info for when it's due. It is connected to the English Council, Taika Pacific Coast, which we are repping here as a region 10 of that exact group. And yeah, okay, so now the questions, and let's get to them. Was there a follow-up then on the question?
Joe says that they'll send an email to expand the question.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of general grading then, I would say that I wouldn't grade, or I wouldn't differentiate between the grading thing, because it's not really a grading tool for me, nor something that I relate to grading. It's more like, use it when you have questions of stasis. Use it when you're stuck. Use it when you're like, okay, I have to write an argumentative paper about this topic, and I have 3 reasons, but that's all I got. Great, write those 3 reasons down, ask ChatGPT to give you the rest. What else has been said about this conversation? Great. Add those in, the points that are relevant to what you want to create. So now you're adding to your thoughts. Or maybe you have an idea and you want to sort of fact check it against it. Well, that would be great if it wasn't because it hallucinates constantly. So maybe you don't use it for fact checking things. Maybe that's still what the internet is for, and Google and other tools and books and encyclopedias, right? As it refines itself anyway. So don't use it for things that you would have to grade. Use it for thinking. Use it for creativity. Use it for additional expression. Use it for on-the-spot assessment and feedback if you have something specific, like, hey, you have an outline, right? For mathematics and sciences, it would be used a little bit differently, right? Well, most of my usage, I'm thinking in the context of writing, and I know in your classes, you're also having students write. So you could definitely address the writing portion, but then there is AI integrated into mathematic tools and other, they're everywhere now. So we're not even having that conversation, but we need to, I think. So if we show students that we're actively having this critical conversation and we let them know that we're having it, then there is no mystery behind like, I'm going to get one over the professor and they're not going to know I used AI. Well, no, we're having a conversation about usage, and we're having the conversation in the classroom as well, actually. So let's talk about it openly, like all of us, because we're all impacted by it, right? So I think that's the better approach. I wouldn't really connect it to any grading, any sort of like, I'm going to grade you for your work with this, unless you're checking for understanding. I'm going to grade you for your work, let's say. Let's go back to one of my activities here. I'm going to grade you for your work and your ability to do the following. Have an exchange with AI. Great, I'll give you points for that activity. But it's not, my classes, because of the way that I run them, I run contract scenarios. So, course contracts that mean students have to complete a certain amount of work and they get a guaranteed B, and there's ways to get the A. So they understand very clearly the parameters of getting grades in my class. And they know that grading is always in their hands because I have revision as the key priority for me. So they're always revising, and they always have the ability to revise up until the very last day of class. So I encourage more use of this if it leads to personal growth, personal skills that are sort of developed from using this technology. That's what I would gauge for, but I wouldn't grade. So I just want to clarify that. I hope that answers the question. Are there others? Any other?
Comment, not a question, I can make a couple of them.
Yeah.
So the first one has to do with writing. So I interacted with the student in the beginning of the semester.
Mhm.
That I think he's failed a particular class 3 times.
Mhm.
And I went, well, you can petition.
Mhm.
And he goes, oh, so I should just go get ChatGPT to write the petition for me.
Mhm.
And I went, no, write it yourself. Because you want your voice and your story to come across, and help ChatGPT help you with the grammar, because he was an English language learner.
Mhm.
So I think getting the students realize that you don't want to lose your voice. That's
Right.
like the most awful thing, to lose your voice.
Absolutely.
You want to keep your voice, but help
Yes,
ChatGPT with,
absolutely.
the details.
Yes, you have to retain it. You have to,
Yeah,
we go with this conversation in a critical thinking composition class through the framework of poetry, using your voice, but then also voting and like being a citizen of a place. Like you have responsibility behind your vote. You have, and how do you vote if not with your words and your, right, your actions that are grounded in your rhetorical. I get very excited about the topic, but the point is, like, I'm with you. You have to refine, but you can't have it do it for you. Here's my question to you, though, sort of in a open discussion scenario. How would you know, as the person receiving it, that it was AI generated? How would you know? Now we're getting into the unethical side of things, right? Like, what's unethical for the student to be able to do that? But it's a genuine question. How would you know?
no, I think as a person who's done for a while,
Uh-huh.
I think the students will give like details
Yeah.
about their experience and life. But if they wrote themselves, I could tell, and if they were just sort of more like a generic thing, it would lack something.
I agree.
Okay.
And it would fill in blanks, by the way, to make it dramatic. If it was a fake narrative that it was producing, it will do that.
Mhm.
So it can do it.
Right.
But your point is the one that I would hyperemphasize. It's your story. Why are you relegating it to the machine?
Right, yeah.
Why are you letting it shape your? What if you don't get in? Because your weak prompt, your output led to because you trusted the machine would produce something great, but it wasn't rhetorically powerful enough. It wasn't emotional enough. I didn't connect to your story because it wasn't your story, right? That can be the decision maker at that level. So yeah, write it yourself. And so we have those conversations with them about, here's why it matters to tell your story in your own words. Here's why it matters to not have somebody else speak for you. I think we can all appreciate that. I like to speak for myself. Please don't put words in my mouth. So that's what it's about. You can't relegate that to the machine. You just can't. And if you're willing to, that's a different conversation altogether. But that's not what we're doing here. What we're doing here is using AI critically, using AI to make us more efficient, using AI to empower ourselves. That's what we're using it for. Now, that doesn't imply lazy usage. I tell my students every day that we are in class, the lazy student and the lazy teacher are going to ruin AI for us. They're going to ruin it because they're going to say, ban in the class, you can't use it entire something. You can't really ban it now. It's too ingrained. It has massive use cases. Like you can really use it to empower yourself. I say use it that way. But yes, let's get to some specific questions. I'll pull up ChatGPT here so we can actually go at maybe some specific examples or questions. And Lenore, yeah, what is your question?
How do you ensure, you will have some students who will want to be ethical and learn and use it as a learning tool, but there will be others who are not interested and just want to get a grade and get out of that class. How do you ensure or try to be the guard of that? Turnitin.com apparently is not doing that
Not the
check
solution.
anymore.
Not the solution. If you go back to the presentation, I won't go back now, but at the top, that article that's there, it continues on to show you the percentages that it just gets completely wrong. It's inaccurate. It has its perks, but it's just not the solution. What I would actually point you to is the article that I pulled that quote from. Breaks down more that larger conversation about our perspective on AI and whether we should be policing it in the first place, which I don't think that we should. That's why I'm sort of turning the other way and going, listen, I'm not going to police you. I'm going to tell you you're going to use it, but you're going to use it in very specific ways. So to answer your question directly, I'd say the AI policy does that, right? In the syllabus, it says, here's what I expect you to do. Here's what you should know up front. And you sign the contract in the syllabus knowing that this is how I'm going to assess you for your work. So at that point, it's like, listen, you know exactly what is going on here. We are very clear about the usage. If you choose now to perform work that is plagiarism, we're very clear about what is what. I asked them to, what is the first one? It's, I said, don't trust it. That's number 2. Don't trust it and fact check it. I said, you have to give me the inputs and the outputs. And that's how I guarantee that if I see the output is here, for example, right, because they gave me a works cited, and then that's the same output that they submit for their work, and I do compare, I'm like, well, you didn't do any revision here, so this is a 0. This is ChatGPT's work, this is plagiarism. This is not, right? And they'll learn, you know, over time as we really are clear about them, about what we want. See, the article also goes into the idea that it's only cheating if you make it cheating, right? For example, in my classes, I allow 0 usage. Well, any use is just cheating. Well, in my class, I allow you to use it for outlining and drafting. Well, I used it to write my paper. Well, that's cheating. That's not what I was allowing for. So being very specific, being transparent up front, engaging them in the conversation sort of resolves that problem. But here's the other problem. Not too many educators are really playing around with this thing and know the limitations or the constraints, which is why we're here. So let's talk about getting everybody to that level where they're comfortable with it. And then there's less fear to have. It's more about, well, what can I do with it then? So I hope that addresses the question. That was a great question.
Yeah, and we do develop a sense for the level of writing the skill and ability to express ideas that our students by the time that we're grading papers.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that it raises the flag, maybe not, might not be evidence, but it raises the flag to think about whether they exceeded the limits.
Absolutely. Now, let's say that you wanted, is there another question? Or
Yeah, so Ryan R had a question about how you would like ChatGPT cited and wrote a link to the conversation can be shared anonymously or by account name. And then followed up with, are you having students cite their chats?
yes, I'm literally having, let me just show you the policy, so that there is no confusion.
That's a question I had. Has MLA caught up with that citation?
It has not. It has not. AI policy.
I haven't caught up.
No, Alan Anderson wrote something that he thinks is like on it with the MLA citation. So we can all have this conversation collectively is the nice part, I think. So here's my policy. And so you can kind of see, I am having them specifically not provide weak prompts and not be very kind of just, you know, input, output, whatever, copy, paste. No, that doesn't work. Weak prompting will lead you to weak results. So take your time, right? Learn the discourse. Don't trust anything it says was just referring back to the idea that you can't trust its logic, you can't trust its reasoning. All it's doing is putting words in front of each other that sound good. Right? It's generating auto text, but it does it in the best way, the best predictive way, the most generally used ways. So don't trust it. Fact check it. Double check somewhere else because you will be responsible for any errors that it makes. That's like the key one right there. That when students walk away knowing that, they go, oh, I better check it then, because if I'm not sure, that's going to be the one little mistake where you're going to get quote unquote caught for cheating. And so I just tell them, be very methodical with your uses, be very conscious about the way you're using it, which requires that you understand the discourse, the specific language of using AI and prompting it. And then finally, this is the one that was addressing the question that was just asked. So use of any use of AI tools must be acknowledged. That's it. Like, I forgot. Well, you didn't acknowledge it. 0, right? I'm not super severe like that. I'll give them a chance, right? But the point is, it must be acknowledged. I want those inputs and outputs. because that's the only way right now that I can actually make sure that it's not a copy paste scenario. Now, what degree of alteration you are satisfied with? Well, that's up to you. You know what I mean? If you're like, any outline will get you credit for the activity, well, then it's a very easy, revise the outline minimally, submit it, you're good. If it's like, I want a brand new outline that is nothing like the output that you got, but sort of borrows some ideas from it. Well, again, you're being very specific about what you're wanting them to do. So that solves those problems, but it sort of suggests that you are communicating with your students constantly, that you're involved in, that you're involved in the class with them directly. So I think the real answer here is if you can use it to empower them because they're spending time with you in the class, I don't see any detrimental usage. If you're having them document the work in a very specific way that you are satisfied with, I don't see any issues with that. If there is no formal citation that is out there yet because MLA is still catching up, then have them cite it in a way that works for you for now, and then they'll give us the specifics. Here's how I want you to cite it. Trust me, they publish that book every year, right? So I'm sure they're updating those citations.
Something I have done is I have told my students that I am attending a series of workshops dealing with AI.
Yeah, exactly.
Intimidation.
Yeah.
They don't know how little I know.
I just
They don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I do see here, Angela saying, I noticed that when I have Grammarly on it, automatically generates a citation of ChatGPT. Oh, there you go. That's cool. Which is AI powered, by the way, right? So Grammarly is now producing AI citations is what we now know. Awesome. You know what I mean? So that's part of it. It's evolving. But to that point, there's plenty of software out there now that's already making use of the technology in the professional commercial space. So there are already students that are using these tools to work more efficiently, like at the workplace. And so we have those conversations in the classroom about, all right, how are we going to use it then? Let's see if there's any other comments here in the chat. See. Comes from conflict of okay, very cool. I don't want to keep the chat up here. If there is a comments, please let me know. We're almost through here. Is there any specific thing that you want to check out on ChatGPT? Anything you want to test out, try out? In the spirit of being here, innovating, thinking through. Yeah.
Is it free? Is it a free?
I'm paying for this one.
Okay.
So that I could show you the plugins if you wanted to, right? So like you have to go to plugins and you can see now that it can connect to these things like Canva
Oh, yes.
to make you graphics right from the ChatGPT itself. So you issue a command, give me a graphic for the following. It does it for you. You can make PDFs, you can make presentations. Even I think I shared this, this presentation itself is made by AI, or with AI tools, I should say. This one I designed more myself. The one that I showed last time, if I could just kind of go back here and show you. This one, I mostly used AI and I made some edits. I added a few images, but yeah, this in itself, this presentation is AI created. You want to create one to check it out? I mean, I'm very much open to whatever people want to try out in the last few minutes that we're here. It's supposed to be experimental here at the end, so did you see this one online? No.
I don't remember. What do you mean this?
So I showed an example of creating something, but we could do it really quickly on the spot.
When?
At the last presentation.
Oh, then I must have seen it. I don't remember.
No worries, but check it out. Generate any of those things. It can do that.
Okay.
So, what do you teach?
History class.
Perfect.
Online.
Perfect. So do you want a presentation, document, or a web page?
Oh,
We're gonna take one of your historical subjects and just have fun with
You
it.
know what, I'm starting in 3 weeks.
Okay.
So, let's say we're talking about, Filipino worker involvement in the grape strikes.
Perfect. Now, would you like a
Are you
presentation, a document, or a web page?
I'm sorry,
Which document? Okay.
You Michael Lee?
Yes.
I just saw your name in the entrance.
Yeah,
You're
let's go.
wanted.
Could you repeat the topic?
Let's see, okay, so we are we asking a prompt?
Yeah, just give me the topic. It'll be very general. What was the topic you said? It had?
Filipino labor leaders in the California grape strike.
Labor leaders in the Californian Bridge. So now what it's going to do is sort of give you some, you tell me if that works. Because I'm not an expert in this, but you are. So does that work for you? Is there anything that you think you'd want to include in there? See, this is the moment using this tool to fill those in and say, this is the organization that I want.
Yeah.
Does that work for you? Okay,
Yeah, sounds good, or.
all right, let's do it. So now we pick a
So-
theme.
I'm sorry, I missed the prompt, I was.
No, there wasn't
not
one.
Successful, okay,
It was just your topic.
right, okay, well, that was the first prompt, right?
Mhm.
Filipino, and then it provided.
An
some
outline.
Outline choices,
Uh-huh.
and, okay, and then so you say, okay.
Continue. Now we could choose ourselves all this, or we could just say, surprise me. You know, surprise me. Give me something nice. So we'll just let it run. It'll do its thing. Surprise me. Oh, I have to continue. Surprise me will continue. Right. So there it goes. Look at that. Oh my God. Wow. Isn't that crazy?
Nice, yeah.
Now, again, you're gonna have to tell me if this is accurate information, right? Because we're not sure. You would be the expert here in this category, and you'd have to say that works, that doesn't work right here. I don't want to actually talk about that. It's almost done. Jesus, come on, hurry up, AI. There we go. Conclusion,
Real.
lessons learned, please remember. Great, awesome. Okay, we're done. So let's go do our presentation. You
How
ready,
do I
people?
safeguard myself from plagiarizing?
You ready? All right. Boom, boom, boom. Is that accurate? September 8th, 1965?
You know, I have to fact check that.
Please do, please do.
It
But-
sounds like the same time frame.
But then, okay, like Philip Veracruz, is that
Yeah.
one of the names that's important? See, showing my own ignorance here with history, I apologize. I'm like, that doesn't sound like a familiar name right now, but you're saying it is an important one. The bot knew to find that name.
It is? Yeah.
Pete Velasco, Larry, Pete Leon. Yeah,
It's from the National Park Service, I figured that they know.
yeah,
Yeah.
pretty good, right?
Yeah.
And now you can go in and make it better with images and make it better with your actual materials and like make it some. Now, again, was this a copy paste scenario? Kind of. Now imagine that we walk in with this lesson. Well, that's the same thing that I said about the student. That was copy paste, you know what I mean? Look how fast that was. That's not my work.
Exactly.
But can you refine this? Of course you can, because you have lessons about this, because you're an expert in this, and because you love this. So you're going to teach it in the coolest, most effective way, right? So we improve upon what it gave us is the point. And that was a document / sort of web page scenario. But it didn't take very long, right?
Mhm.
So that's one tool. That's this tool. Now to show you how you could do it through this thing, that's the problem, is that it would be much harder to do that through just ChatGPT itself now. So this is where these solutions are going to become available for campuses to purchase so that we can use them in this way. But you know, now we have Gamma for AI production. If you would like to look at EduAid for a moment, I'll sign in so that you can see. Let's stay on. Let's pick a new subject, people. What are we going to teach today? Actually, let me see if in the chat there's some questions about it.
I was looking at the message from Marcy Worthington about asking for an outline of a historic crime from the 1920s. And I'm responding to her, maybe your prompt was not specific enough.
Yeah, I love Marty's question here. So she's like, what happens if you ask to create a reference list? Well, what do you think happens? It will make one up. Even if their sources aren't real, right? So it will make one up. So again, you have to come at it with your own sources, your own information. Where did you get that information is the real question then. So you can back it and cite that source for your students to use moving forward, right? This is a good, like who said the Aristotle quote, right? About ethos, pathos, logos. Well, there's a source for that, right? It doesn't matter who said it later, but let's use the main source. Like we have to give them that sometimes. I think that that's a very important question though. Like we should have reference lists. It does hallucinate and make stuff up. So don't ask it to cite for you. Instead, find resources yourself, like we've always had to as academics, cite those and correct it, right? It's a little bit more work, But isn't that kind of funny that it turns out it's actually more work and not less? You know, that's the point here. It is more work. Maybe it's not more work, it's different work. But the point is, it's not at all just an input, output, submit scenario if you really want to shine with this, if you really want to make it work for you and serve your purpose.
So I'm writing a test for my differential equations class, math, right? I want to have a group part and then an individual part. I'm trying to find some good problems for the group part. So I came up with this problem, I put in ChatGPT, and of course it solves it wrong. So I'm looking through it and I'm going, this is very interesting how they did this wrong.
Yeah.
It looks like a very valid solution.
And it doesn't backtrack, right? It doesn't tell you I was wrong. It just keeps going like I'm right.
Yeah. So now I'm gonna copy and paste this ChatGPT solution and give it to the students, and in groups, they have to figure out where it went wrong. So that's basically gonna be my
Beautiful,
group
beautiful.
exam.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I mean, but that's the thing is like now you have to innovate a little bit,
Yeah.
but it turns out you're actually having your students do higher order thinking by
Yeah,
having them do
exactly.
this activity now.
right.
So it's like, great, it's great, like, you know?
Are you gonna say this is what an AI told me the solution was?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Please
so it'll be
do.
totally
Please
transparent.
do. We're gonna blow it up all over campus.
Right.
Like, here's how we got it wrong, people. So don't believe it.
I'm gonna-
Right?
That's an excellent deterrent.
Absolutely, absolutely. We need that. We need people calling it out for when it makes mistakes, because it's like,
Not to prove that ChatGPT is wrong, because
No.
it's not always wrong.
no.
But it seems very confident. and-
Hyper confident,
Right.
too confident, right? Not, no, Lay, I don't like the confidence. I'm gonna fact check you, you know? But then now tools like this one aim to limit that, limit the noise. So this tool, for example, takes the base ChatGPT sort of idea and sort of builds something on top of it. So it's more filtered command. So this won't give you a bunch of crazy stuff, but I want to try something maybe with a subject from your class. Give me a topic that you
Okay.
teach in your class.
Okay, we are talking about myth of reality of the American dream,
Okay.
economic equal opportunity.
So let's say we needed to plan something because, you know, we're gonna do a co-presentation on it or a co-lesson. You already have all your background knowledge. I didn't do any work though. And so let's just make it up on the spot. You ready?
Okay,
Okay, so I think we need a lesson seed first, right? Like, or do we need a lesson plan or a unit plan or not a rubric? We're not there yet.
no,
So let's go with a lesson seed
Yes.
or a unit plan.
what is a unit plan?
Well, let's find out. Right? Let's just play around with it. So we said, what was the topic you said?
The myth versus reality of American dream in the 21st century.
Perfect.
I'm refining my prompt a little bit.
Yeah, well, here's the thing too. This tool-
US.
in the US.
It's good, I think just putting stuff in ChatGPT might help us refine.
Yes, yes.
Right,
But here's the
With-
point.
with
Listen,
students.
no, they take that idea and there's a little button for it.
right.
So they've done it already for us. What they do in the background is they'll take your initial prompt and we'll say, actually, can you please enhance that for me? Thanks. Now, this is what the prompt is that we'll run. Now, let's actually run it. So let me move this up, add to workspace. So there you go. Now you tell me if that will work. It's a 4-week lesson plan.
Wow, cool.
Students will identify the concept of the American dream. They'll analyze the text. They'll do those things. Here's lesson 1. It'll go for a while, so we're gonna have to give it a moment, right? So lesson 2, lesson 3, lesson 4. It's just gonna give you a lesson plan, a unit plan for your lesson plan. Now, here's the thing, though, right? We're like, this is all great. I've got my lessons, but you know, what I really want is some independent practice. I want them to do stuff individually. You know, I don't need this whole lesson plan. Let's just undo this. Undo lesson plan. I don't need this. Let's erase. But let's actually do some project-based learning on the American dream. Okay?
Okay,
Let's see what comes up. Because that's the goal here. It gives us activities. All right, an abstract. This project aims to critically examine the dichotomy between the idealized concept of American dream and its actual manifestation in contemporary society. Sorry, apologies, that was a long breath there. Utilizing interdisciplinary research and evidence-based arguments, this project seeks to synthesize various perspectives on yada, 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 yada. Section 1, the sociological perspective. Section 2, the economic perspective. Section 3, the psychological perspective. Section 4, the
That's,
pretty good, right?
yeah,
Because like, listen, we still have to rely on your expertise. Because remember,
Yes.
I'm co-presenting with you and I don't really know all this stuff. But this is pretty good for me as your assistant.
mhm.
And now we can kind of fill in the details and maybe assign some readings and maybe issue some questions and maybe some creative
Yeah,
projects.
Kind of a
Right.
tailor for the actual plan that I have in mind.
But I don't have any time to develop a new prompt for a research project.
Okay, in that case, I'll go with it.
No. What I'm saying is,
Take the path of least resistance.
no, listen, we don't have time to do it ourselves. So look, wait, hold on, there's a research project. Oh, okay, so let's do that then. Oh, there you go. We don't need.
Wow.
Right, now this is, I sort of, I love this tool, but I also acknowledge that it won't be a free tool. Right, this is a tool that's being developed by a company. So at some point, they're gonna charge us as schools for using it. But look what's being built for educators, is my point.
Mhm.
It's not about the students' AI.
Yeah.
It's about us too. Can you improve your lessons? Right?
Obviously, yes.
Of course you can. Wait a minute. No, hold on. I want to do more cooperative learning, but I don't know how. Well, what about a gamification style bingo? What about Jeopardy? What about debate? What about a jigsaw activity? What? Okay, great. Pick a topic, create the activity, copy paste. There's your lesson. You still have to moderate it. You still have to guide it. You still have to engage them.
Yes.
You know, you still have to do the work. So that's just another great resource, I think, to showcase.
Can I ask
Yeah.
add on a question? So let's say if I did that, then in fairness to the students, should I cite this with some examples of this is kind of prompt that I use?
I'm transparent with them.
And
I've done it where I have lesson plans for like Inherit the Wind, and that books that I teach in my class. But just on purpose, you know, I had having my lesson plan right here. I was like, let's not use this, and let's use this, and let's see if it's efficient. And so going with only this, doing it like this in front of the students, they were like, that's amazing. Also, good questions. So how are teachers using this to create their lesson plans? And that was their question. And I said, do you think it'd be fair for teachers to be using this to create their lesson plans, but then to be hounding you about using it to respond to their assignments? And so there was a huge discrepancy there already, like students going, this isn't fair usage. Oh, it's about equity in some ways. How do we use it across the board? So anyway, long story short is this is a tool that can help us use it academically. It shows you that it's not just for students. It shows you that it's just one of hundreds of companies that are building AI solutions. So this is the reality. But I'm saying to you again, be sort of in line with the argument for a moment that it's good for us and that it can make us more efficient. Can a tool like this make you more efficient? Because it's made me more efficient. And I'm using stuff like this to improve my lessons. And obviously we have the original lessons to showcase, right? Because that's the power of digital media. It's always there to show you previous versions. So I could show you how my previous versions, I feel now, were subpar compared to the new versions that have these newer strategies. And I didn't pull them all from this tool, but I did do it with ChatGPT, just engaging with it, trying to figure out what's the best way. How can you give me more for this idea? How can I engage them more with this question? And it's just a lot of thinking. So it's a lot of thinking about writing and writing about writing. Thinking about writing and writing about writing is a way of improving your writing, just period. So I hope that has been helpful. Specific prompting. We'll go more into this for assessing, because this isn't assessing. This is building. This is lesson planning. That's what this gives you. But then there are ways to assess as well. So now that the students have feedback, written responses, how can we use ChatGPT to help us do that? Well, that's what we're covering next time. Yeah.
Might you be missing your real calling instead of teaching English? Might you be teaching?
I don't think so. I don't think so, but I'll tell you why. And it's a great question. It's because it turns out that the rhetoric that I love so much has never been more useful than now. Never. And like understanding rhetorically right now is super powerful, and students need that. And I'm a huge fan of a classic education and, you know, rhetoric, logic, grammar, like the trivium, the whole rhetorical canon. It's my bread and butter. I love it. Because it's about thinking. So when I ran into this, I was like, how are we gonna use it? People were like, I gotta get away from it, or it's scary, or I don't like it. I'm like, no. How are we gonna use it? Because there's a new rhetoric developing, a rhetoric of AI, a literacy of prompting AI, an understanding of what it can empower you to do, so you can have more time for other things. See, all of that is what James Pudgett calls a discourse, right? This new language we're learning has an identity kit, like a bag, and you're like, this is how you sort of act and speak and think when you're working with AI. It's new literacy. So I hope, again, that it was helpful. I hope to see you at the next presentation, which is, let me pull it up here,
2 weeks.
because I forgot. Yeah, I think it's on the 8th, right? Here it is. Go down to the bottom, and yeah, it should be on the 8th. Okay. Oh, on the 6th. So that one will be called Enhancing Efficiency, Grading, and Assessing with AI for Educators.
I'll be here.
So really, it's about the efficiency, and you could even do some homework ahead of time, just trying it out yourself. And then when we come back that day, we could experiment and share.
That's a great
Because I'm
suggestion.
always learning from new users too. That's really the point here, is like you have to share and do what we're doing here. And I hope you won't just listen, but you'll go and play. Well, my favorite teacher, I said last time, is Miss Frizzle, because of her philosophy of, take chances, make mistakes, get messy, right? Get in there, play with the tool. It's a new toy. How are you going to use it to make you more awesome? And, how should we avoid using it to diminish or hurt our students' rational, critical thinking? So, cool, awesome. Thank you all for attending here on Zoom. I'm going to go ahead and close it out since I don't see any more comments in the chat. I do see here, Heather, yes, thank you for coming. Hope the presentation was a little bit better than last time when we sort of had the troubleshooting issues. So, awesome. If there are any final questions, please let me know. Oh, awesome, thank you. Cool.
Thank you.
Have a good one, people.